Hey everyone, this is Cameron from Renegade Animation on renegadepopculture.com. If you like what we do, please give us a like, a follow, and a rating on Apple Podcast or wherever you listen to us. We are everywhere where podcasts can be found. If you can, consider supporting our Patreon. That way we can keep doing what we love, and that's talking about the wild world of animation and the Renegade Animation Award Show. And now, on with the show.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Renegade Animation on the Renegade Pop Culture Podcast Network. My name is Mike. I'll be your host for this evening. Joining me, as always, is the animation guru himself, Cameron.
Howdy, howdy.
And yes, this is our 2024 Renegade Animation Awards. I'm not sure why we skipped last year, except for life getting in the way, but we've got that plus some reviews for the Sloth Lane, or as it's known in the US, a Sloth Story, and the new Gundam series. You're gonna have to help me out with the pronunciation here.
It's like Mobile Suit Gundam GQuuuuuX or G. It's like Kido Senshi Gandamu GQuuuuuuX. So it's like G-Quack or G-Quick or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. But before we get too deep in any of that, I do want to congratulate the team behind Flow, who just won Best Animated Feature at the Academy Awards. Yeah, that's Latvia's first ever nomination and win for the Oscars. So congratulations to them.
That's bananas to think about. And it is also Disney's third time losing in a row at Best Animated Feature because this was usually their award to lose because the voters would be like, I didn't watch anything, so I'll just choose a Pixar or Disney movie that they released. And sometimes it was just going to be a Disney or Pixar movie because of the cultural impact it left. But not always. And now, ever since 2022 has happened, it has been going to pretty much anyone else. Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio from Netflix, G Kids' Studio Ghibli and Hayao Miyazaki's The Boy and the Heron, and now Janus Film and Gint's Zimbaludis Flow. And this is good. Honestly, it was surprising to hear that Disney only took home one award last night with Kieran Culkin's win on A Real Pain for Best Supporting Actor. So I hope this keeps going because this needs to be a wake up call to Disney for what they're doing right now, especially since they are once again laying off a bunch of people, canceling a bunch of things for Disney Plus, and are just stopping all long form streaming stuff altogether. Or at least for right now, they are not making anything exclusive to Disney Plus.
Disney Animation is pretty much pivoting all of their television stuff to Disney TVA, which, is kind of a bummer because we're no longer in the age of Disney Plus being the top priority at the company. Now it's either on the big screen or on television, whichever television they have left.
Just seems kind of funny that they're like, we're just going to cancel everything, lay off a bunch of people. And some people are like, why don't you just put it on TV? And they're like, that's a terrible idea. Even though it's like the most sensible thing they could ever actually do. Oh, God, I don't get these stupid companies sometimes. Just these ridiculous, absurd decisions made by the higher ups. Again, and I'm working on an editorial about this. Disney's biggest enemy is not DreamWorks, Illumination, or its inner studios like Pixar. It's themselves. And that's not going to change anytime soon. But for now, let's mosey on over to essentially our first time talking about an theatrical feature based on an anime property that is essentially not a real movie. And I don't mean that in like a snobbish, like, oh, this is not true cinema. No, this is literally three episodes, assumedly an episode zero, an episode one, and two put onto the theater or put into the theater to get people excited for the new series and to make some money in return, which it has made a lot of money. I mean, Gundam's one of those giant franchises that is extremely popular, and
Hmm.
it doesn't really hurt that this one has a lot of like hype behind it with Kazuya Tsurumaki directing it, but it being a collaboration between Sunrise, the studio that usually makes Gundams and other non-Gundam based mech shows, and Studio Kara, Hideki Anno's studio, which Hideki Anno is also a writer for the series alongside Yoji Inokito. And it is so weird to see Gundam get back into the spotlight. Not that it's never left it for a long period of time, but it did seem like after Gundam Unicorn and the Mario Kata Gundam series that she worked on, Iron Blood Orphans, they were pretty much coasting on like the Gundam build series, which was, like Yu-Gi-Oh, but everyone had a Gundam model and, you know, I mean, you get the picture.
Yeah, yeah.
And then they were like, okay, we're going to coast on that. It's like how Subaraya Productions coasted on the big arcade card game hit of like Ultra Odyssey, where instead of playing as one of the many Ultraman leads, you played as the monsters and such. And they did that for a few years. And it's not like they didn't introduce any new Ultra heroes, but you really had to wait it out until they were like, okay, we gotta get back into doing something with Ultraman himself. And that's what it kind of feels like with Gundam recently, with The Witch from Mercury being a smash hit. And now we have this new step in the evolution of the Gundam franchise with Hideki Anno continuing to be a giant nerd.
Oh, yeah. He
I
is.
mean, nothing against that, of course, because I mean, if you watch the first 30 minutes of this movie, you can tell that the creative team, and the studios were really wanting to capture that old school 79 Gundam feel. And then we get to the more current timeline of, well, before we jump ahead, let's talk about what this series is. So, they basically pull for those who are unaware or unfamiliar with Gundam. Gundam has multiple timelines. Some of them are canon, some of them are alternative timelines, some of them are part of other timelines. It's a mess. But this one takes a Marvel what if situation. And of course, it doesn't have to be relating to Marvel what if, but for the more casual audiences, this is essentially what it is. What if in the 1979 anime series, instead of Amuro Ray getting into the Gundam and, traumatizing future teenagers, we got Char Aznable, who is pretty much like the face of the Gundam franchise. Like, I'm sure some people would argue that it's more like Gundam Wing or what have you, or the Gundams themselves, but Char is the face, which is funny since he's wearing a mask at all times. So,
I was gonna say.
metaphorically speaking. So yeah, Char steals the Gundam instead of Amuro Ray getting anywhere near it, and Zeon ends up winning the whole galaxy war that has been going on between the Federation and the Principality of Zeon, aka Space Nazis. For the first 30 minutes, it's pretty much all set up. It's for them to get all of the lore, fan service, winks, nods to the original series out of the way. And they do a pretty good job with the animation while they are using more CGI with the mobile suits themselves. I mean, they're going to have to.
That's just become the standard now for mech anime.
Because, again, people, for those saying, like, well, I like my 2D animation, and it's like, I love it too, but it's also time consuming, expensive. And when you make certain types of characters or things in general overly complicated to animate on cell or just on paper, you're going to have to figure out some compromises. And for here, while they still have a lot of amazing 2D animation, especially with the fact that they got Take, who she is mostly known for her more recent contributions to the Pokemon franchise. And then the mech designs were done by Ikuto Yamashita, who worked on, gosh, like what haven't they worked on? Neon Genesis Evangelion, Blue Submarine number 6, the iconic Gunbuster, Nadia, The Secret of Blue Water, and the smash hit RPG from last year, Metaphor Re Fantasio. So you already got like a pretty stacked team of people here to work on this new series. And the the first 30 minutes is all about Char leading Zeon to victory until the very last minute, where he was going to help cause this big explosion inside space station inside a meteor, and then bailed out at the last second, where he and the Gundam that he just had to get painted red because it's Char, and anytime he gets a new mobile suit, he's going to have to paint it red. Except for like maybe one or two, but I digress. And then, well, people are like, okay, where did he go? And 5 years pass, where now we follow Amate Yuzu Riha. And she is a high school student living a quiet life on a space colony. Of course, since things can never be just calm and peaceful in the world of Gundam,
Nope.
she gets involved with a refugee named Nyan and ends up piloting a new mobile suit, which is this series' iconic Gundam GQuuuuuuX. On top of all this, while piloting this new mech, they encounter the mysterious red Gundam that Char piloted all those years ago, and a new pilot has joined the fray. And you just are left with the overall mystery of what's going on, where is Char, where did they exactly go with the mobile suit, and the mystery of how the psychic connection works within the new mobile suit and with the red Gundam and such. It's really hard to judge this as a movie because it's just 3 episodes stitched together.
That's the only reason why I never wrote like an actual review for this. But as far as like judging this as the first three episodes, if that even is the case, or this is like you said, episodes 0, 1, and 2, I'm into this. I am very intrigued by the first of all, the implications of Char and the Zeons winning the 1 Year War, but also what his disappearance means for this new timeline. It's possible that could just be the setup to get the Red Gundam into just this new setting, but still, there's a lot about this world that I'm just fascinated by. Even the idea of like these clan battles almost remind me a little bit of G Gundam, since that was more like a close combat type of series.
Well, yeah, G Gundam was more like the Shonen Battle franchise, especially with everyone having super cool, flashy attacks and every part of the world having some kind of Gundam representation, which ranged from okay to freaking yikes. And I mean, never forget the original Tequila Gundam for Neo Mexico. Just yikes.
Yeah.
Oh, you just kind of have to laugh at it because it's just like, oh man, this whole series saved the franchise, and yet it's so baked with racism and stereotypes, which is a issue with Gundam in general, but I digress. That's a whole other topic. As a movie, it doesn't work because you're stuck learning about everything that happens within the original timeline after Char gets to Gundam. And then I will say this. As much as I love the painstaking detail and loving homage to the original series. Going from the 1979 designs of the characters to the more Pokemon adjacent designs is very jarring because you
Yeah,
can tell it's not like a super hard slap to the face, but it's noticeable. Even some characters who become now more like from secondary to main characters have a more Pokemon feel. It's like if we were doing another like Gundam build fighters, and this time they just said, "Yeah, no, we're not hiding the fact that we're like Pokemon or Gundams or something like that." As much as I love the thematic elements of just like finding freedom in a world where Xeon has taken over, and how Suji Ito, this new mysterious pilot for the Red Gundam, it's just like the Gundam says you need to fight. And yeah, it's it's so odd because we are in a time period right now with the current presidential reign, and the show was made knowing that something horrifying was going to happen, and it's telling us to pretty much stand up and fight back against dictators and what have you.
which is a good message. It's just weird how prescient this is.
And then the side characters and the overall cast are not the most interesting so far. I mean, again, it's like 2 episodes and then a exposition dump for the entire package. So Neon doesn't get a whole lot to do. Amate is fine as a lead. Shuji Ito is kind of like the chill, like haunting pilot and what have you. It's just weird to get a grasp of like because it's a movie, it's in theaters, but it's not built like a movie. And you're just waiting for the commercial breakups or like the opening and ending theme to keep playing 2 to 3 more times or something like that. And but as a pure marketing tool to get us hyped up for Gundam again for the spring anime season, it does a good job. It leaves you with just enough to not truly justify the ticket cost, but if you're a hardcore Gundam fan and you want to just have the opportunity to see the new series before the spring anime season will drop in April, it's a good time. And the battles are dynamic and satisfying to watch. The designs, while jarring going from 79 to now, are very appealing. They have a lot of good animation to them. You could tell this had a lot of money put into it because the CGI also looks great.
Oh, yeah, for sure. While structurally it doesn't really work as a movie, I also understand exactly why both Toho and G-Kids wanted to put this out in theaters because they know how big Gundam is all around the world, not just in Japan. I know that in the West, Gundam has like a pretty big fan base, or else Netflix wouldn't still be trying to make some sort of live action Gundam project that we've been hearing about for like forever, it seems, and nothing's really come of it.
Yeah, no, there's. We'll have to see. It seems kind of bad to try to make a live action Gundam when they already had that realistic CGI animated limited series where we followed a group of Xeon soldiers where the Gundam was portrayed as the bad guy and such in a very interesting way. And again, this is just a marketing ploy. I don't know if people would really want to see this instead of just waiting for the anime series to air. But yeah, like I said, if you want to just get a good sneak peek and then have to wait until April, then by all means, do it. But for now, let us move on very slowly to A genuinely surprising animated movie about a family of sloths. It's it's interesting how find these kind of experiences and like while not perfect and it has its flaws, I love finding these small animated features that a lot of people are going to genuinely ignore, but they're missing out. It's weird to think about that because animation is in such a weird spot. And honestly, I feel like some people would actually want to venture outside the US animation circle to check out something like this.
I'm genuinely surprised that my theater got this movie. Just to peek behind the curtain, I had no idea that you like took interest in covering this until earlier this week when I just happened to find it on my theater's website. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, let's do this now. And I'm glad I went because this movie is honestly surprisingly charming.
This movie is called The Sloth Lane or A Sloth's Story. And it is directed by Tanya Vincent, who was the co-director of Scary Girl, the stunningly animated CGI film from either a year or two ago,
I think it was
which had
last
that.
year.
Oh, yeah. I mean, like, I think it came out in 2020. Yeah, it came out in 2023, but it got a US release last year. It's it's just so interesting because I knew about this movie. Of course I did. I'm me. It showed up at the Annecy Film Festival, and there was very little buzz. I could not find a whole lot of reviews for it, and I refuse to call letterbox reviews actually reviews. I was thinking, okay, maybe we're just not going to see this movie. Okay, that's fine. Kind of a bummer because we don't get to see a lot of Australian animated features, even though they have a rich history of animation.
Oh yeah, no, for sure.
Then Blue Fox Entertainment came out and said, "Hey, we're going to bring this movie over." And then that's when I was like, "You know what? Let's take a look at this one." Because not only do we get to not see a whole lot of Annecy films or films that partake in Annecy, they tend to either not come over or the only way you can watch them is when they are uploaded online and what have you, which is not fun if you want to legally support these film releases. And also, it's the fact that, well, there's barely anything coming out for months. There are some small releases happening, but those are small releases, and a lot of people have tended to show that they don't care about smaller releases. If it's not a big studio project or something that you want to go see your favorite YouTuber rip apart in a calculated, stale way, you don't care. Like a lot of you don't care, and that's fine. It's understandable. But it's just one of those times where it's like, man, I wish this got a wider release. And granted, Blue Fox wasn't going to be able to do that, even though, I mean, just because they're a small distribution company and such. But let's really just dive into this movie. After a terrifying storm destroys her home, a speedy sloth named Laura and her kooky family move to the big city in their rusted old food truck, Gordito, hoping to make their businesses a success. The family's delicious food catches the eye of a quick witted cheetah who will stop at nothing to revive her failing fast food business. This movie, when I saw it, I think it was yesterday, had the overall charm of like an early Disney afternoon show.
Sound like DuckTales or Goof Troop.
Exactly. Well, I'll say it's not the funniest animated movie to come out this year. I mean, the Looney Tunes movie is quite literally, as we record this, around the corner. Just around the river bend. But it has enough charm that it reminds me of a lot of the Aardman and UK productions of shows and movies, where it is not all about being hip, modern, and catering to the four quadrant audience goers. It's just here to tell a simple story about the power of family and connection while also having just a solid time from beginning to end.
What keeps this movie grounded emotionally is the family feel authentic. They're not necessarily like caricatures of different archetypes. They're just written as people. And considering what happens in the third act of the film, it is refreshing to see sincere and realistic the family is portrayed.
This is a very likable family, and the dad is probably my favorite character. He is one of the best animated dads of any animated film. Super supportive, funny, likable, endearing, is always trying to uplift his family, and the overall family is fun. You got the energetic, ambitious daughter, you got the chill older brother, which he is probably the only one who acts the most sloth-like
Yeah, he
of
does.
like this movie doesn't play with the one joke from Zootopia where the sloths are super slow, which yes, that it was done decently well and was funny in Zootopia in that little Disney Plus series. But it's nice to see what is essentially a entirely different like rabbit versus turtle situation where we have the sloths, which are known for being slow, and our villain is a cheetah, which, is one of the fastest land animals on the planet. It's a fun new take on that kind of power dynamic where the daughter wants to make it big. She wants to help her family, but she also wants to make it a lot more corporate so then she can go and become I think it was a rugby. Oh, cricket, sorry. The whole story is it's her finding time to slow down, take things in one day at a time, and of course, know the power of family. The side characters, they're charming. I did like Laura's friends, but they don't leave the biggest lasting impression. I think the only side or like main cast member that does leave an impression is Leslie Jones's character. She plays the cheetah
Dottie.
who is running what is essentially that evil burger corp from Good Burger.
Oh, Mondo Burger.
Yeah, Mondo Burger. And she's just all about like we got to get food out fast. It doesn't matter about quality or taste. We just got to make money. We're going to do every corporate greedy thing that we can to try to be on top. But I think that's also because Leslie Jones is just a fun actor. So she leaves an impression as Dottie. Where the other characters, like Laura's friends, while they are likable, because this is just one of those Australian productions that knows how to have charming characters, there's not much else to them. The Kiwi is very funny. I love it how he's just like, okay, I got to get going before this. And then he freaks out as his wristband lights up. And the who is like confined to a wheelchair, but is just full of energy. Another fun side character. Has a few decent lines. Like, okay, everyone, I'm done yelling at you today. Like, there's a lot of that kind of charm. A lot of what people have, like, enjoy with like Aardman, where it's more about solid jokes that hit and just makes it an overall good vibe time. And I like that they went with this faux stop motion style because when you first saw the image of this on the Annecy website, there is obviously a difference between looking at a movie in motion and how it looks compared to a screenshot. And it was just like, okay, this looks okay. Obviously, a smaller budget film, which is not a problem because not every film needs to cost $100 million.
Exactly.
But then when the trailer dropped for it, it took this new faux stop motion look to it, even down to the textures, where it feels like a plasticine like texture to everything. And everything's very snappy. It has kind of like the comedic animation seen in Goof Troop or Looney Tunes with how everyone moves and how jokes work out. Like, I love anytime Laura is like one step ahead of her brother and how his brother freaks out, even though he's always like, come on, sis, you gotta chill, or and all that stuff. And the dad dancing his way through the security system. So funny.
That scene might be one of my favorites just because he's just so in his happy place during that sequence.
He is, and everyone's like, "Oh my God!" But he is just all in on it, and I love that. He's not embarrassed. He is proud of being a dad. And while the mom is played more as like the stick in the mud of like wanting to stick to tradition, her and Laura's arc is the driving force of this movie, where Laura learns to slow down and cherish family and the moments that you have with them. The mom is more about being more open to change and new ideas. Where they, at the end of the day, find a compromise and they make that lovely dish together as a family. And like, it's just a sweet movie. You're probably just going to find it on Netflix in the future. And if you do find out like whatever streaming service, whether it's like Peacock or whatever, or
Or
what have
Tubi or
you,
Tubi.
it's just a solid time. Like I said, I wish it was funnier. It has the snappy animation to be funny. What it doesn't have in jokes or like an overload of jokes, it makes up for that really just touching charm. Though I do love that the food taste tester is a dung beetle.
Just a perfect visual gag right there.
Like when it has a joke, it's really funny. And I love the joke of Laura telling the story about her parents in that whole Indiana Jones sequence. And then it cuts to the two guys who are like, hey, that's cool and all, but we've just been waiting for 2 hours for our food, which is just like, listen, if you've had like Mexican food or Latin food, it is delicious stuff, but it does sometimes take like hours to perfectly concoct and cook. It's a lot of fun when it picks up during the heist sequence,
Hmm.
like near the end. But I don't really have much else to say. It gets in, it gets out, and that's all it really does and what it needed to do.
The last thing I'll mention, this was the rabbit hole I went down just before I went into this. So this movie is part of a kind of sort of shared universe of movies called The Tales from Sanctuary City. It started in 2020 with The Wishmas Tree, and then there's a couple other movies in here. And I don't think if you haven't seen the other movies, you'll be lost watching this one. It's just kind of interesting. This company, like a Photon Creative, kind of has their own little playground of all these different characters.
It's really cool to see studios all over the world adapting to the current animation scene where yes, you could argue it's becoming a little overdone with everyone doing the like choppy frames of animation or faux stop motion look to everything, or instead of doing 24 frames a second, you do 12 frames a second with their animation. But as long as they find creative ways and art styles to make it work, I'm all for it. It's way better than that time period where everyone was trying to copy Disney or Pixar's visual look and or DreamWorks trying to be more inventive with their human looks, but it just wasn't there yet. especially with films like Monsters vs. Aliens or the original Puss in Boots, which tried to have a more cartoony art style, but also compromised with making some elements and designs more weirdly realistic looking, which, yeah, like to all the people who are complaining about the new Shrek trailer and such with the new look, they're just more expressive designs, y'all. Stop freaking out. A lot of you are adults crying about this.
Yeah,
Take a chill pill.
seriously. Plus, the movie isn't coming out until December of 2026. None of that stuff is going to be in the film proper.
No, exactly. And to all the people who are saying like we could do what we did with Paramount and Sonic where they redesigned the characters and it's like, man, the animation industry is already in such a volatile state and what y'all want to do is force a bunch of animators to crunch to redesign something that's already taken like 4 to 5 years to make. Y'all don't know what you want or are talking about. Just God, that Sonic victory, quote unquote, really made things for the worse, especially with after what happened with The Last Jedi and all that nonsense. Fandoms are the worst. But a Sloth story or the Sloth Lane is a fun, delightful little romp. It will probably not be anywhere near my top 10 by the end of the year, but I'm glad I watched it. I'm glad we can see some of these upcoming or like previously released animated films stateside. In the near future, we're going to see Into the Wonder Woods, which is a French movie, which is also like faux stop motion, but also has delightful little 2D animated sequences mixed into it. I'm down for more of these smaller releases. It's actually pretty interesting to see how after COVID came through and just wrecked everything for the movie industry, a lot of smaller distributors were like, "Hey, why don't we release our movies in theaters? Just put them in there for like a week or two and we'll make like a good decent profit out of them." Or just to be like get people's attentions and then release them digitally and what have you.
It's nice that, at least in terms of the world of entertainment, the world is getting, it feels like it's getting smaller because more international movies are coming stateside.
That's true. And while a lot of French and European animated films are sadly struggling at the box office, at the very least, there are some movies that are coming out and are finding a new audience where they wouldn't otherwise. Because a lot of times these smaller CGI films tend to get released on digital, DVD, like directly to there. Or Netflix buys them for cheap and puts them on their service or what have you. So, yeah, if you like solid, fun, charming little animated features, give this one a watch. It might not have the substance of bigger releases, but anytime I can feel very surprised by an animated film, I'm down for that, man. Like, bring it
Same.
on. I want to make sure we can cover more of these if we can or if we want to.
I love being able to just let myself be surprised by a film that I walk in with zero expectations, because those are usually the experiences I cherish more than even like the bigger releases.
I mean, like, how many times do you walk into like a Disney or Pixar movie and you're like, well, that's not a shock that it turned out as it did?
That's pretty common, both positively and negatively.
Like, it's a pro and a con that you know what you're getting into, but that element of surprise is always welcome. And I hope we get to see more movies like this in theaters and audiences finding the time to support these releases. But for now, we are at we are at the Renegade Animation Award Show where we celebrate the year of 2024 theatrical animation. And this will be very chill. Not just because like I'm tired, but we're going to be very laid back. with how we approach the award show this year. We're just going to talk about the overall year of 2024 and just like what we liked, what we didn't like, and so on and so forth, while also giving out awards to all the movies that we liked.
Overall, 2024 was maybe not the most full year for animation. There was still a lot of great movies that were released around the world.
I write for a website called Media Magpies, where I wrote an editorial talking about 2024 in animation, and it was a real trial by patience year because whatever is going on with the industry, whatever the strike did that only these executives should be blamed for strike happening in the first place,
Yep.
it just bled into 2024. And we saw fewer releases, and we didn't really talk about a whole lot, like all the way down to TV shows. And we talked about this maybe a few episodes ago. There just wasn't a whole lot there. And a lot of the times, like I'm quoting my article. It's like you will wait a month or two, you would finally get an animated film in theaters. You would then leave being like, well, that was not great. And then you would have to wait another month or so for the next big theatrical animated film. It wasn't fun. Not that there weren't any good movies. There were a ton of great movies. But it was a struggle to wait and to enjoy some of these experiences. And it's just because the US animation scene was just not great, and it didn't help with all the layoffs happening right now and last year. It painted a very dire, middling world of animation because of executives meddling. And again, this is what happens when you have soulless Silicon Valley and or like non-filmmakers or artists running things in Hollywood.
It makes things pretty bleak just seeing so many people without a job last year. That was not fun to witness.
And it was all because these studios and the CEOs are just trying to save so much money because they come off like they don't like spending money. And unfortunately, when you are in the world of the arts, you have to spend money to make the art that will get you more money. It makes you wonder why these executives don't just bail on this because it's obvious that some of them don't care about what happens to the art or the creatives that made it, especially you, Disney.
Hmm.
I would say if I had to grade the US in terms of animation, despite the fact that it had films like The Wild Robot and Ultraman Rising, I'd give it a C. Like maybe at most a B minus.
I think
It's
that's
not a
fair.
2020, it's not a 2017 or a 2006 year for animation, but if it wasn't for The Wild Robots and Inside Out 2, the US scene was just not very good. Thelma the Unicorn, That Christmas, Despicable Me 4, Moana 2, the Garfield movie, Saving Bikini Bottom, Spellbound, The Tiger's Apprentice, and of course, Megamind versus the Doom Syndicate.
Oof.
None of these were as good as they could have been, or were just not good at all. Despite the fact that there are so many talented people out there doing what they can, because the more money that you're having to spend on a production, the more force this thumb of the CEO is going to be looming over you, being like, hey, stop spending money on that. Even for like the overseas animation side of things, if it wasn't for Memoir of a Snail and Wallace and Gromit Vengeance Most Foul or Flow, I would argue that this could be a very weak year for foreign animation.
You think
Despite
so?
the fact that, yeah, it just like, despite the fact that it has some very cool titles and a lot of them are in my favorites, nobody went to see them.
Okay, well, that is a fair point. Like, and really, that's just a problem with modern audiences and their lack of curiosity. If it's not an anime franchise film, or I don't know, if it's not something that like every single critic is like screaming from the high heavens that you need to check out, audiences just kind of don't care about whatever's not like the next big thing.
There's just so many good movies, and that's why it's so amazing that Memoir of a Snail and Flow were able to do as well as they did, because otherwise the Colors Within had to be a 2025 release, even though it's a 2024 release. The hype and success of Look Back pretty much went away after a week or two. The Imaginary got stuck on Netflix. Ghost Cat Anzu was good, but not stellar. And some of the other smaller releases, like My Oni Girl, Spy X Family Code White, or The Concierge, or Trapezium, just never quite grasped the audiences or people. And even though people were like, I want 2D animation in theaters now, a lot of y'all didn't show up for Lord of the Rings, The War of the Rohirrim. And listen, yes, it's not a perfect movie or anything like that, but we finally got one of the rare few adult animated films, 2D nonetheless, and nobody went to see it. At
At
least
this
like Transformers 1, it had the unfortunate luck to come out a week before the Wild Robots.
Yeah, that was poor timing. Man, Paramount really cannot catch a break when it comes to release dates.
Like they and Lionsgate had a terrible year last year. And man, what do y'all want? To animation fans directly, if you're not going to go to the theaters to see these movies, then stop complaining that we don't get these movies. And distributors like G Kids, you gotta tell people more about the amazing films like Mars Express or Chicken for Linda or Sirocco and the Kingdom of the Winds. You can't just be like, well, we're going to release it for a day and then be shocked that nobody went to see it or nobody knew about it because of the limited theatrical release windows they gave those films.
One thing that's really disappointing when it comes to G Kids is, do you remember when Belle was released at the start of 2022? I know it's a 2021 release, but we got it in the West January of 22. And at the time, that was like one of their biggest opening weekends. And yet they never really capitalized on that success.
No, they didn't. Inuo died on the vine. And so far, Chicken for Linda doesn't have a physical release. It's digital only for some reason right now, despite the fact that their other releases are getting put on Blu-ray. Then it's just like people just didn't really show up for films like Piece by Piece, which was a cool documentary about Pharrell. Well, nobody went to see that. People slowly started to realize that, hey, Transformers 1 was actually really freaking good, but they didn't show up for that. Kung Fu Panda 4 was a success, but, you know, it's the weakest of the whole franchise. And Netflix just dropped the ball. I don't think they had quite a lot of good releases this year. I think their best were obviously Wallace and Gromit, Vengeance Most Foul, and Ultraman Rising. But man, they had not a great lineup of films. That Christmas, Thelma the Unicorn, Saving Bikini Bottom, which got leaked like months ahead of its supposed release.
Oh, yeah.
And Spellbound just continues the downward spiral of the fact that Skydance has a sex pest in charge and continuously crafting mediocre movies and shows. And then DreamWorks is just like, hey, we're going to bring back Megamind as a TV show and zap any of the fun and charm of what people liked about Megamind. Sony just had the Garfield movie pretty much, which was a very un-Garfield movie. Like it was everything but a Garfield spirited movie. And then Despicable Me 4 had that weird finality to its story where it was like, this is the end of this current story of Despicable Me. And it's like,
No,
wait a
it's
minute, you're
not.
telling me you had a story? Like growing character arcs and such? Because stories were like the weakest part of Illumination films. So the weird ending of bringing back all the villains and singing Everybody Wants to Rule the World, it's like,
You didn't earn
it,
that.
no, you did not. Moana 2 was a massive success, but it was a chopped up production nightmare that just wasn't really good. And I get why it was a hit because Moana is a huge moneymaker. But man, people, y'all can just not go see the movie. It was like the first, well, no, it's like the second most like major time I've walked out of a Disney movie where I was like, I gotta go watch something else.
And
Because
that's not
that
something you want to say coming out of Disney animation.
exactly. There were some smaller releases that were fun, like Orion in the Dark was a surprisingly complex story. Kensuke's Kingdom was very interesting. Maboroshi was dramatic as all get out. And while I did not fully like Thelma the Unicorn, it still had its fun moments, and you could tell people were having fun making the movie. But man, what happened with so much of this animation? And you know it's because execs are doing a terrible job running the industry. And it's like we're entering this trial by patience speed run again with this year because we saw Dogman back in January, but we're not going to see a major new release from like one of the bigger studios until June. Oh God.
Yeah,
Like,
that's thank God the Looney Tunes movie is coming out this month because that is a pretty big drought to go from like end of January to June with like
and I
nothing
know,
else in the middle.
and there are like other animated films that we know are coming out, but what is going on with the spacing and disparity between all these freaking releases? There's just not a whole lot going on in between. And I get it, they don't want to probably deal with fighting against a Marvel movie or whatever, or like the new Jurassic Park movie coming out. Well, what if I don't want to see those? Then I'm just not going to go to the theater. I'm going to hope that there's a great physical, like theatrical release of a foreign animated film or just something else entirely. Like, man, when I sat down and watched Neza 2, I was so amazed at how many people were in my theater. It was sold out and the movie was amazing. It's currently my favorite animated film of 2025 so far. And I just,
Nice.
it's not going to be coming out or like, it's not going to be dethroned anytime soon. And that's sad. It's really like walking into the year of 2025, and I'm like, I have very little excitement for Pixar and Disney. Like, could Zootopia 2 and Elio be amazing? Yeah, probably. If Disney wasn't already like behind the scenes tampering with production and telling them that it's like, this is not safe enough. We got to make it even safer. When what they need to be doing is challenging themselves, dare to be different. Like, forget the overly familial tone and vibe you give off, Disney. Do something creative. You have more money than like the entire celestial like community of gods, and yet y'all are making some of the most safe stuff ever. It's so sad. I am more excited for everything else, big and small, good or bad looking, than Disney and Pixar. That's sad. That's not a good thing at all.
Yeah, like don't get me wrong, I am looking forward to Ilio. I hope that movie is a huge success. But to say it's my most anticipated movie would be not true because I just have more excitement for The Bad Guys 2, which is like it's
It
dream
looks great.
it looks great. It's DreamWorks, so I have a lot of confidence that a sequel to one of the sleeper hits of 2022 is going to be amazing.
Well, it's like Disney has lost the trust of the consumer, and that's what's going to happen. My most anticipated movie is Scarlet by Mamoru Hosoda, and everything else, just from the US side of things, outside of maybe K-pop Demon Hunters, just looked kind of whatever. I mean, like, I'm looking forward to the bad guys too and all that stuff. But knowing how producers and executives are trying to meddle with everything that is great about the medium of animation and storytelling, it's hard to be like, oh yeah, I'm down. I'm Team Elio or whatever. Also, we're getting like three or four different Jesus animated films. I don't get it.
Yeah, why this year of all years?
It's like the Bigfoot Yeti situation of 2018 and 2019. So, you know what? Let's get started with the awards. Let's just dive into the deep end. First, well, we already talked about our most anticipated. Mike, you said Bad Guys 2, and I said Scarlet. So, favorite scene. What would you say was your favorite moment of any animated film of this year? And we don't have nominations. This is just in general. Like, no, like, oh, we got five nominees for this or whatever.
So I really like the flight sequence in the Wild Robot set to Kiss the Sky. For those who don't know or don't remember, Chris Sanders co-directed the first How to Train Your Dragon, so he's pretty good when it comes to capturing flight sequences. And this is just another example of how great he is at telling these type of stories. Plus the emotion behind all of it just made the whole thing work.
This is tough. I have a few that I could easily choose. There's the revival of the ant from Sirocco and Kingdoms of the Wind. Yeah, the flight sequence of the wild robot. The sudden realization of what the dish means to Linda from Chicken or Linda, like
Ooh,
Chicken for Linda.
that's a good one.
It's about the chicken, but it's not really about the chicken. The reveal at the end of Memoir of a Snail or Pinky's speech at the end. Like, there's a reason why a few of these movies made me cry hard. Or on top of any of the more comedic sequences from the movie, Wallace saying, like, I can live without inventing, but I can't live without me best pal. Hits hard, especially when, well, I lost my dog recently. He passed away. And yeah, it's like I could go on without talking about animation and writing, but I can't live without my best pal. And the ending to Mars Express or the beginning bit of Ultraman Rising when the egg hatches. Just beautiful stuff. Or the concert from The Colors Within.
Yes, that's the
This
other one I was going to choose.
the skipping scene from Look Back, the panic attack from Inside Out 2, the we're going to be all right sequence from Piece by Piece, darkness evaporating from Orion in the dark, the moment where Megatron truly becomes Megatron in Transformers 1, which had just, man, Brian Tyree Henry. He deserved to, he should have won at the Annies, but I get why Lupita did for the Wild Robot because she was also just great there. Or like the swimming sequence from Flow. Like, there's a lot to look for this year. But if I had to pick one scene that was like my favorite scene of any movie from this year, it has to be the revival of the ant from Sirocco and Kingdoms of the Wind. Like, just the way that the scenery plays out, how Sirocco becomes just the mask as it flies downward to revive the sister. Just how beautiful it all is. Just the emotional gravity of it all. It's so good, and I sound like a hipster picking the one of the more obscure films from last year, but man, when you're able to see this on the big screen like I was when I was at Animation as Film, it's just like a whole otherworldly experience. Now, best comedy.
Oh, that's easy.
Yeah. It's obviously Megamind versus a Doom Syndicate. No, I'm kidding.
Obviously.
Yeah, no. Well, there weren't that many comedies this year, and the ones that how many that we had were not great. Like with Garfield the movie, I was expecting so much more comedy from it. Our Saving Bikini Bottom should have been way funnier. Those movies weren't really all that funny. And like there were funny moments, like in Transformers 1, where they finally meet Starscream and the whole sequence of like, wait, why is Bumblebee's mouth welded shut? It's like because he wouldn't stop talking, even when he was asleep, especially when he was asleep. Oh, Shockwave, you're great. But really, how could it not be Wallace and Gromit Vengeance Most Foul? Like,
Yeah, I'm still not sure if it's actually my favorite Wallace and Gromit film in general, if we're including the shorts, because The Wrong Trousers is just an absolute masterpiece. But the fact that this does bring back Feathers McGraw in such a brilliant fashion that isn't just fan service, but actually serves the story, that makes Vengeance Most Foul like one of the better sequels to some extent that I've seen in quite some time.
when we talked about the movie a few episodes ago, we just spent a lot of time just talking about the jokes and how many hilarious moments there were. Especially just like I think I see Feathers McGraw on the boat. No nonsense. That's just a small nun. And it just Feathers McGraw turning around in a nun outfit.
Or the mad scientist sequence where Wallace comes up and he just looks absolutely insane.
Yeah, yeah. Like Aardman has comedy down to a T. I don't know how any other movie could have topped it in terms of pure comedy. Even like movies I liked more than it, like The Wild Robots. Yeah, it had its funny moments, but they were never as consistently great as Wallace and Gromit. Best action movie. This was also one where we didn't quite get a lot of good action-based movies, but the ones that we did have didn't make this a very tough choice and such. For me, it was Mars Express. Just to see a cool French sci-fi Ghost in the Shell like experience. Just to see that action. And again, this is one of those movies I saw in theaters at Animation as Film. Just something that you don't see in animation like anywhere. Like not that you never literally see anything like it, but it's so refreshing when it shouldn't be.
I'm glad you said Mars Express because that movie is very underseen and definitely could use more love. For me, I went with Ultraman Rising because the way that movie was animated and the action sequences in that I just thought were visually stunning. I thought Shannon Tyndall did a great job with his directorial debut. It's just one of those movies that it was number one on my list for a while until it wasn't.
It was funny how much it stayed into my top five until everything else started to come through. I wish it had more different monster variety in its action because it was just really Noronga and then trying to take care of the baby kaiju and then the big fight with the giant robot at the end is what kind of held it back for me. Where Mars Express was just pure, unfiltered mix of like The Fugitive with Ghost in the Shell and such. Just constant action, just great stuff. Best drama, which is something that you don't quite get to see a whole lot of either, where they're not like quirky adventures or comedies that have their more somber moments. But this year we did get quite a few like movies that were more dramatic in tone. Like for as many funny moments it had, The Wild Robot is surprisingly quiet and adult with its story,
Oh yeah,
despite the fact that it has a bunch of talking animals.
or Memoir of a Snail, which is like very not for kids, but it tells a pretty dark story about these siblings who were separated for like the
Years.
majority of their lives.
Yeah, it's all about coming out of your shell, metaphorical and literal, and moving forward. Yes, we can look backwards at what happened, but we gotta keep moving forward. And that moment at the end where they, spoilers, again, even though the movie comes out on Blu-ray later this month, the moment where they reunite at the end made me cry both times I saw this movie in theaters. And I think that's why I have to go with Memoir of a Snail. As a sibling of a pair of twins, it's the film that stuck with me the most of this year in terms of the dramas. Because, like, even though The Wild Robot is really good and it's really mature, it's more of an adventure movie. I wouldn't call it a drama.
It's got more of that like Amblin quality to it.
Even like Chicken for Linda is more zany than serious because it only starts to get serious near the end when you realize why Linda wants this chicken dish. And Mars Express, it's good, but it kind of loses me at the very end with its drama. And Ultraman, it's just more found family, like, oh God, I gotta take care of a baby, even though I'm ill equipped to do so. But it does have some great moments. Like, especially between the reporter and our lead, and then our lead with his father. Like, Shannon Tyndall just nailed those downtime moments.
For me, I agree. Memoir of a Snail is the winner for best drama. It was my number two movie of last year because the emotion, they just hit that deep.
Now, for best director, this is tough. It's like my top 10 is full of varied experiences, and they're not even similar to one another. How can you say Look Back is similar to The Imaginary or Wallace and Gromit is similar to Mars Express? You can't. It's tough because I loved Chiara Malta and Sebastian Laudenbach for Chicken for Linda. Chris Sanders, obviously, just being a dynamite force in storytelling. Adam Elliott just finds this way to craft drama and dark comedy to make some of the most uplifting movies that you will ever see about like humanity and such. And then Benoit Zhu of Sirocco and the Kingdom of the Winds for or not a directorial debut, but one of his first major productions that he worked on. To have waited 4 to 5 years for it to finally come out, it was so worth the hype just to see a man craft this French Ghibli movie, but with the experimentation and edge of a movie from the 70s and 80s. So, Mike, who did you choose?
I went with the easy choice. I went with Chris Sanders just because The Wild Robot, just to reemphasize, it was my number one movie of last year. It's also just the most well-rounded movie of the year. It has action, but more like adventure action. It had comedy. It just overall had great characters that you could latch onto. I could maybe give an argument for the director of Flow. Again,
Yeah.
for what he did and for the many hats that he wore with this production, the fact that he was able to tell such a compelling story without a single line of spoken dialogue to hold audiences' attention as they are joined on this journey with these animals, it is an impressive feat.
And then there's the like you could also argue about Kiyotaka Oshiyama, who directed Look Back, who was able to capture that young excitement and love for art and animation and manga and what have you, and how they both were the kids that worked and made the manga and whatever and what have you. He just found a way to capture the mood and spirit of the one shot with these two characters. And then like Naoko Yamada, she knows how to capture teenage angst and just the fear of the unknown of just what you want to do with your life when you are that age, like of the trio of main characters. I do think I have to go with, yeah, I think I have to go with Chris Sanders as well. Just wearing the hat that he does and how he has crafted stuff like How to Train Your Dragon, Lilo and Stitch, The Croods, and now this. He just knows how to make the most emotionally gripping story when he wants to. Like, there's a reason why people still love talking about Lilo and Stitch. I mean,
Mhm.
for that reason. Not looking forward to that remake. Now, for best actor performance, I'll be blunt. I think I'm going to give it to Brian Tyree Henry for Megatron. Because, yeah, Chris Hemsworth was fine. Like, he was good. But Brian Tyree Henry, this is probably some of his best acting. He really brings this, like, hopeful optimism to Megatron. And then you watch the slow Shakespearean tragedy of Megatron becoming a bad guy. And just the anger that drives him. Even if it's not in the best, his actions aren't going to result in the best results. You just really were rooting for him and loving him. And he's one of the few villains out of so many animated films that have come out that makes a compelling villain, which is not something we see all the time with animated films.
He was so good in that movie that for a while I was like actually convinced that like what he's saying is like not only do I sympathize with him, I'm like actively rooting for him to succeed until the turn where like he does become Megatron and it's like, "Oh no, you're bad and we have to stop you." But like that turn at the end doesn't work if we weren't invested in the friendship that he had with Optimus Prime for like the majority of the narrative.
Exactly. Who did you choose?
I went with Christopher Sean, who played the lead in Ultraman Rising, just because I think he just poured everything into that role. Like he's like the typical leading man, but he's not just the hero. He goes through a pretty significant arc, not just like what it means to care for other people, but specifically how to raise what is essentially his adoptive child in like the monster. So it I thought he completely understood the assignment.
No, he was very good. It's just Brian Tyree Henry for me was just the one who steals most of the performances from this year. Best actress performance. You could go in a multitude of directions here. The leads from Sirocco are pretty good. The leads from Memoir of a Snail, like she was really good. Sarah Snook, who played Grace, she was wonderful. The lead in Mars Express isn't as memorable or impactful as others, though I did like her sarcasm. Amy Poehler is good as Hope, but even though she had some great moments, most of the time I preferred her funny moments over her dramatic moments. Like that moment where she just kind of snaps at everyone is
Oh,
still genuinely one of the funniest moments. But it is still a bummer to know that like Disney was overall willing to pay much more to Amy Poehler than Mindy Kaling and Bill Hader. It's not Amy's fault, but it does detract from that for me at least.
yeah, I get that. For me, I genuinely think Lupita Nyong'o gave an incredible performance in The Wild Robot. And it does help that she has been so supportive of the people behind the scenes as much as like not just giving the props to the director, but like the animators and what she's been saying about them, how they are every bit as vital to the performance as she is. On top of her just being an incredible actress in her own right, she just did a wonderful job. And I love the details that she adds to her performance. Like at the beginning, it starts off very robotic and very like very robotic and mechanical. By the end, she pretty much becomes human with her voice.
She's good. I wasn't as surprised that she was amazing. I was very happy with her vocal support of the animation industry. But I think for me, it's a tie between Melanie Leclerc and Clotilde Hesme for Chicken for Linda, where Linda and Paulette, the mom and daughter duo, I thought they were just wonderful performances. They brought a lot of nuance, a lot of gravitas to their moments together. It is so hard to find a good child performer and just for like kid actors to be as good as they are.
Oh yeah.
But Melanie is just wonderful as the lead. I was so surprised to see how many times Chicken for Linda was nominated at the Annies. But Lupita is like a close second to these two women. You can't go wrong with either one. Now, biggest surprise. This is all about the movie that was made you go like, wow. I was not expecting to love it as much as I did. And I think you and I had the same one.
Yeah. It's
Speaking of,
Transformers 1.
how do you go from having one of the worst trailers of the year of 2024 to having one of the most compelling stories of any US made animated film of last year?
This is honestly the reason why I don't cast judgment on a movie simply by its marketing. A, because I want to be surprised by the film itself, but B, I also know I've been in this space long enough to know that like the trailer it does not have to accurately represent the movie, and half the time it can't because they're still working on the movie while the first trailer is released. The main goal of a trailer is to sell the movie. And yeah, I will even admit, first trailer for Transformers 1 did a terrible job. And that's why the movie didn't break out as much as it did in the box office. But the fact that the movie itself is as good as it is, a testament to everyone else making sure their expectations are kept in check.
Josh Cooley made a compelling story out of Transformers, which is something that the franchise hasn't had since 2018 with Bumblebee. And I know a lot of people love the Michael Bay movies, but I'm sorry, those aren't good movies. Like them if you want. I'm not going to stop you, but don't tell me that they're good movies because I'm going to disagree. Best streaming exclusive. Like, unfortunately, because of the quality control for streaming services where everyone was just dumping money as fast as they could, streaming exclusive has gotten the title that direct to video used to have. Where it's like, oh, it's not good enough to be put in theaters, so that means it's bad. And it's like, no. Even some of the direct to video films were actually pretty good, depending on the budget, time, and team behind it. So it's really unfair to be like, oh, you're a streaming exclusive. That means you're a lesser experience. When a lot of times with these streaming productions, they're just trying to do what they can and to make the best product possible under Netflix's utter nonsense. And for me, I think that has to go to, well, it's tough. Do I go with Wallace and Gromit because I just had an amazing time with it? Or do I go with Ultraman Rising, which really should have been seen on the big screen? I don't
So
know. And
when,
then there's the Imaginary, which barely
oh
got a
yeah,
release elsewhere, like anywhere. So
I think for me, knowing that you were going to pick one of the other two, I wanted to spread the love a little bit and talk about Orion in the Dark because it's unfair and unfortunate that A, because that movie came out in like February, it was just forgotten. But like the fact that this was a script written by Charlie Kaufman of all people should not go unnoticed. Of course, this was never really going to be a big hit in theaters. but I just wish more people had a chance to actually see it when it hit Netflix because it is a surprisingly complex film for DreamWorks. Even when talking about a lot of their bigger hits, like The Wild Robot or some of their early stuff, like The Prince of Egypt, it's still a lot more nuanced than what you may expect just based on maybe even that first trailer.
And come on, y'all can't tell me you don't love the Sundance joke in Orion where they even got Werner Herzog to do a small voice cameo and be like, it's only like 13 seconds long and such.
Love it.
I forgot about that joke, and it makes me laugh every time I think about it. I think I'm just going to go with Wallace and Gromit, Vengeance Most Foul, though it tied with Ultraman Rising for just the best streaming exclusive experience. Though the Imaginary was also really good. Best CGI animated feature. So this is all about like what your favorite CGI film was. And again, you could go in a multitude of different directions. Ultraman Rising, The Wild Robots, Inside Out 2, Piece by Piece, bringing back the stop motion Lego look. Orion in the Dark having its more childlike children's book designs. And Flow being as successful as it has been with its use of Blender and the cell shaded indie game look of its visuals. It's a Wild Robot, right? Like the best
Yeah,
CGI animation has to be the Wild Robot because everyone watched that trailer and went freaking nuts over it.
yeah,
Like bananas, bananas, just bananas, bananas, bananas over it. And its painted look, its soft, dreamlike visuals from the storytelling moments. It's just so amazing to look at, and unfortunately, was the last in-house animated project that DreamWorks worked on.
way to go out on a high note. They really pulled out all the stops with that animation, with every single detail of every single frame. It's genuinely some of their best work.
Exactly. I wholeheartedly agree. Now, best stop motion movie. I kind of added this one last second because it was once again a year where we could say, hey, there were more than just one stop motion movie that came out. And unfortunately, it seems like a lot more people are going to go down the route of taking their CGI animation and making it move and animate like stop motion. But it's good to still see people like Aardman and Adam Elliott still crafting wonderful stop motion experiences. And I know I should technically choose a winner between the two, but they're side by side on my list for a reason. So I'm just going to go with both of them. And they offer something entirely different from one another. Wallace and Gromit has its more whimsical comedy charm, where Memoir of a Snail is more dour, but the dourness is what makes the powerful moments of freedom for Grace even better.
If you're not going to choose between the two, then neither am I. Because, like you said, these two choices are pretty much the that image of the two different masks, the comedy and tragedy. That basically is what these two movies are. And both come highly recommended.
We have the best 2D animated feature where we talk about or choose our favorite 2D animated movie, which again, super tough. Sirocco, Chicken for Linda with its painted simplistic visuals. Sirocco with its stunning 70s vibe look of everything. The Imaginary, it's just Studio Panok like flexing. They're
Yeah.
like we are officially no longer just a Ghibli clone. And then the Colors Within, where Naoko Yamada brought up a couple of the sound euphonium people to craft one of the most just haunting, fantastic last thirds ever. And how our main character can see people through as colors adds a really lovely touch to the whole thing. Look Back has really good visuals, but they weren't my favorite of the year outside of the skipping sequence. And unfortunately, even though I love War of the Rohirrim or enjoyed it, as much as I enjoyed War of the Rohirrim, its clunkiness started to show, especially like it didn't help that we all found out that they only made a new Lord of the Rings movie on the cheap because they wanted to keep the license. So it's like cheapens its feel for me. And
Yeah,
Ghost Cat Anzu is fun with its distinct take on rotoscope animation, but I think I still have to go with Sirocco. Like that fantasy world that it crafts is so unique that you will not find it elsewhere in the world of animation.
I'm gonna go with Colors Within because I think just the way that Naoko Yamada captured synesthesia is just perfect, and animation is just the right medium to properly convey that phenomenon. Plus, it's a movie about music, so I'm just already inclined to enjoy something like that.
So, best European feature, which I wish I could put in Memoir of a Snail, but that's Australian, even though British took over it. But, I have to go with Sirocco. Again, I'm not going to repeat myself every single time I choose Sirocco, but its visual language is so compelling. It looks so distinct with its flat colors, and it's more like Mobius inspired visual look. Sirocco himself is like a 10 out of 10 design.
Do love that design.
And that's why I'm choosing it. When I saw this at Animation is Film with my dad, we just could not stop talking about it afterwards. We were just that amazed by it. Mike, what did you choose?
I had trouble choosing this one because the European animation scene, specifically French animation, really brought their A game with Chicken for Linda, Sirocco, Mars Express. But I have to go Flow just because it's such a small movie. Like, not only because Gint wore like a number of different hats in the production, it's such a small movie but told in a way that feels bigger because you're just with these characters going on this journey. Because there's no dialogue, you're bringing your own investment into these characters. And I think for everything that team was trying to accomplish, they succeeded.
I mean, it's a very like technically impressive movie with just how absolute visual storytelling. They weren't going to have them talk, so you got to convey how they're feeling, who they are as individual animals with their personalities, and to the world around you. So it's not just animals, animals, animals. It's like they could easily represent something within the world itself. Best Japanese movie. This is also one that had kind of slim pickings, and not just because we counted Her Blue Sky as one of the 2024 films, because Netflix finally brought it over. But there just wasn't much else. I mean, there's like My Oni Girl, whatever anime franchise films were out there. The Concierge, Mabaroshi looked good. The only one that didn't look good was that Baki Hanma versus King and Ashura special. Like, good lord.
Oof.
You have the worst parts of both shows on full display with that thing on a visual level. And yet, it's tough. Do I go with the imaginary because of its themes of childhood, friendship, family, and the strive to be creative? Or do I go with Naoki Yamada's docile coming of age story of three friends forming a band?
I went with the colors within, but I can totally see the argument for why you would go with the imaginary, just because this was essentially Studio Ponok planting their flag and saying, no, we are more than just a Ghibli clone. This is what we can do when we're fully allowed to be ourselves.
Finally, we have the best US animated feature, and Obviously, it's going to go towards The Tiger's Apprentice. No. I don't even think most people remember The Tiger's Apprentice. Like from all the way back in February, man. Good Lord. It's obviously like the Wild Robots.
Yeah, no question.
Like out of any movie to come out from 2024 in the animation scene and just in general, there was no more hype than the Wild Robot because it just got everyone talking. Anytime its trailer played in theaters, everyone was like, wow, that looks amazing. It's all worth it. It was so worth the hype. And it does deserve to be the best US based animated film of the year compared to the other ones because there just wasn't much else. Were you really going to go for like Piece by Piece or Thelma or That Christmas or what have you? It's like there's a reason why Inside Out 2 lost so many awards, but The Wild Robot was picking them up alongside Memoir of a Snail and Flow. It was just like one of those rare everyone gets it movie.
Basically, just to go back to the Oscars for a second, the only reason I think Flo took it over the Wild Robot is A, the Academy has a lot more international members, and B, there's something that Guillermo del Toro said when he won for Pinocchio. I feel like what he's been saying about treating animation as cinema has really resonated and probably resonated more with the international members because they probably just take the medium more seriously. That's why movies from overseas, you're going to see more of a presence in the best animated feature category. But since we're talking about the US, there is a reason why The Wild Robot won as many Annie Awards as it did.
It's just freaking good, y'all. And that's really it. That's as much as I understand the appeal of just like you all have to compete, there can only be one Highlander style. I wanted to make sure there a lot of these movies got more love and just general appreciation of what we got last year because they hardworking animators working on shows and films just deserve so much love right now. Just all the love, all the attention, all the support that you can give them. And for Hollywood to stop being cowards and actually start greenlighting some stuff.
I'm starting to get sick of this like mentality of all of these different movies and shows getting the axe as opposed to greenlighting new things because the only way these studios are going to make money is if they make art. They make the things that people want to see. I will never understand why there isn't just more movies and more shows coming out. And just as like the one takeaway I hope to get from 2025 and beyond is I want studios to respect respect the artists. I want audiences to be more curious, like try to seek out movies that you wouldn't normally go to. Do what you can to step out of your comfort zone because you may end up being surprised by what you see.
Yeah, please, if you're going to complain about animation and how dead it is here or whatever, just be quiet and actually throw your hat into supporting all of these releases and just all these different experiences. It's not that hard. Even if you have to like wait until some of these things hit like Blu-ray or digital or whatever, it's okay. But you just have to start actually watching half of this stuff. Like, or just more of it. And hopefully that happens. But for now, this will be it for this episode. And next time we will be talking about Witch Watch and the New York International Children's Film Festival.
But until next time, Cameron, where can everyone find you online?
You could find me on Blue Sky at camsiview.biz. I run my own website called camsiview.biz where I review animated films and shows from around the world called The Other Side of Animation. I am also a contributor to Media Magpies, the newest journey into the world of media and pop culture criticism. And I have a Patreon at patreon.com/CamsEyeView. That's where you can find me.
And you guys can find me on various social media sites at Captain K42. You can check out my quick thoughts on letterboxd.com/Coach K42. And you could follow Renegade Pop Culture on Facebook and Blue Sky at Renegade Pop Culture. You can also find us on YouTube, on Podchaser. Consider supporting our Patreon at patreon.com/Renegade Pop Culture. Listen to all of our podcasts on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen. And last but not least, everything can be found at renegadepopculture.com. Need escape? So do we. That'll do it for this episode of Renegade Animation. We will catch you guys later. Peace out.